Yes, sir.
I'm just waiting to get the notification.
You see me, brother?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we are live. I want to welcome everyone back, especially for this special edition of Off the Record. We have a great guest with us, brother, Student Minister Abdul Muhammad, who is what I call an expert, subject expert on Malcolm X and everything about Malcolm X and many things, but especially when it comes to this subject, he's someone who was taught me since I was in middle school the truth about Malcolm X. So I knew that I could count on him to give us some facts on the subject unemotionally. Assalamu alaikum, brother Abdul.
Walaikum salam, my brother. How you doing today?
Excellent, sir. Excellent, sir. Brother,
yes, sir.
First of all, we just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a conversation with us dealing with the assassination of Malcolm X and just dispel some of the false narratives that have been, talked about and to enlighten us on things that we don't know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let's get straight into it. These are some of the questions that people already asked. A lot of people wanted to know. Thank everyone for tuning in today. And walaikum salam, y'all. Walaikum salam. Rashad said, let's go. Walaikum salam, Sister Miriam. Walaikum salam, Naima. Thank you all, family. Always coming through in a clutch. Thank you for saying welcome back, Mimi. Yes, sir, brother Abdul. The first question that we would like to know, or the people would like to know, is who killed Malcolm X?
Man, that's a great question, brother. So what I would like to do, brother, is if we could, can we save the assassination question until a little later on?
Yes, sir.
Only because I want to build up to it. And I think that some of the other things around the life of Malcolm X kind of need to lay the foundation first. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
But what I will say, I'll say this, and then we can always flip back to it. So when Malcolm X was assassinated, there were 5 people in the Audubon ballroom the day of his assassination.
Okay.
And so, but see, you really can't, you really have to start, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but on February 14th, Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. But on February 14th, 1965, Malcolm X's home was firebombed in New York City.
Yes, sir.
And when Malcolm X's home was firebombed, you see the video where he comes out of the house and Malcolm X immediately blames the Nation of Islam and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad for firebombing his house on February 14th, 1965. But if you read the FBI file on Malcolm X, the New York Fire Department blamed Malcolm X for firebombing his own house. That's what the fire department said, right? If you look at Malcolm X's neighbors, right? Malcolm X's neighbors said that they saw New York Fire Department people carrying unlit Molotov cocktails into the home of Malcolm X. So when you read the report from the fire department, it says that all throughout the house there were these unlit Molotov cocktails, and that some of them were like sitting up straight on the dresser, right? So this is where they tried to create the story that Malcolm X firebombed his own home. So now that was February 14th. Malcolm X blames the nation for firebombing his home. But by the time February 21st came, which was a week later, his view of the nation firebombing his home had changed, right?
Yes,
Malcolm X's half-sister Ella said that she didn't believe that the nation firebombed, once all that other information came out, Malcolm X's home. So, and I'm starting at the 14th, even though that's really not where we should start.
Yes,
but I'm just saying that because the 14th of February, a week later, Malcolm X was assassinated, but on February 14th is when Malcolm X requested from the New York Police Department 24-hour security on him and on his family. And so that leads to February 21st, when Malcolm X was assassinated in the Audubon ballroom. and there were 5 assassins at the Autobahn ballroom, or 5 people involved, I should say,
Yes, sir.
in the assassination inside the Autobahn ballroom. And there were no police officers present, even though just 1 week prior, Malcolm X's home was firebombed, and he was supposed to have 24-hour police coverage for his safety. So I'm just kind of laying the foundation that he was assassinated, but it was a setup. You with me?
Yes, sir.
How do we know it was? Well, okay, so so black people pulled the trigger, right? We know black people pulled the trigger.
Yes, sir.
And I won't say, here's what I will say. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't have anything to do with the assassination of Malcolm X, right? And Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan didn't have anything to do with the assassination of Malcolm X. If you read the FBI file on the assassination of Malcolm X, in the FBI file, they take full credit for the split between the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. The FBI takes full credit for Malcolm X's quote unquote demise in their eyes. So we know that there was a lot of government involvement in the assassination of Malcolm X. Some people will say, well, you know, the nation assassinated Malcolm and the government knew it, but the government just didn't do anything, and that's not true. So the Malcolm X's head of security, his name was Gene Roberts.
Yes, sir.
We know that Gene Roberts was working for the New York Police Department, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is the man that set the stage for the 5 to come in and do what they did to Malcolm X. And I gotta say this, brother, I really wanted to start with this, brother. So I'm a member of the Nation of Islam. I've been in the Nation of Islam all of my adult life. I came in the Nation of Islam when I was 18 years old. But when I was a junior in high school, I read, give me 1 second.
Yes, sir.
I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, right?
Yes, sir.
And the autobiography of Malcolm X is what led me to want to come in the Nation of Islam. So I'm not here to talk bad about Malcolm X, to tear Malcolm X down or anything like that, because the fact that I'm in the Nation of Islam today is because I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and his autobiography inspired me to want to join the Nation of Islam. So I just wanted to put that out there. But on the day of Malcolm's assassination, right, Gene Roberts, who was the New York police informant, right, working for the police department, Gene Roberts made sure when Malcolm X spoke at the Autobahn ballroom, Malcolm X had the press would always sit in the front row, so that at the end of his speech, they would be there in order to ask questions at the end of his lecture, right? On February 21st, now you have to keep in mind that he requested 24-hour police surveillance on February 14th, right?
Yes, sir.
He didn't get that, right? There were no police at the Autobahn ballroom on the 21st, right? No, there were, I'm sure, undercover police, but there were no uniform police officers, because Gene Roberts was there and he was showing up the police, right?
Yes.
So now Gene Roberts is the one that was responsible for moving the press out of the front row of the Autobahn ballroom on February 21st and moving them to the side of the Autobahn ballroom, and then not just moving the press off the front row, right, but putting the assassins who murdered Malcolm X on the front row of the Autobahn ballroom. So there were 5 people involved in the assassination of Malcolm X, the 3 shooters, right? And then you had the 2 men that created the diversion in like the 5th or 7th row of the Autobahn ballroom, threw the smoke bomb down, get your hand out of my pocket, right?
Yes, sir.
Everybody in the Autobahn ballroom, when that happened, right? everybody in the Autobahn ballroom turned around that was in front of that row, turned around and looked back, like that's what a distraction is for, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody turns around and looks back. If you get the grand jury testimony of Sister Betty Shabazz, right? Sister Betty Shabazz, the lawyer asked her when the disturbance happened, what did you do? And she said that she turned around like anybody else would do, right? And the three assassins that Gene Roberts set, the New York Police Department informant, right? Gene Roberts, who sat the assassins on the front row, once that distraction was created, then those assassins stood up and they shot Malcolm X, right? Yeah. So now, because everybody wants to blame, well, not everybody, but you have people that want to say that Elijah Muhammad has something to do with Malcolm X being killed, or that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has something to do, or that the nation set the whole thing up and the government just watched from the background, right?
Yes, sir.
So now we have Gene Roberts that we know works for the government, right? Yes, sir. When Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam, because the Nation of Islam does not allow white people, right?
Yes, sir.
So the FBI, every black FBI agent, you owe your job to the Nation of Islam. We don't rock with you, but you owe your job to the Nation of Islam, because J. Edgar Hoover was forced to hire black people to infiltrate the nation when before he didn't hire no black people. So J. Edgar Hoover, when Malcolm X split from the nation, he created a program. COINTELPRO didn't come until later. It didn't come until after Malcolm was assassinated. So Malcolm was not a victim of COINTELPRO. J. Edgar Hoover started a program called Black Pro, where he recruited all of these black informants to infiltrate Malcolm X's group as well as the Nation of Islam. So you don't know, like Malcolm didn't know that Gene Roberts was a New York police informant. Dr. King didn't know that his photographer was an FBI informant.
Yes, sir.
Most of the world didn't know that when Alex Haley came to write the autobiography of Malcolm X, Alex Haley was working for the FBI, and that his whole purpose was the purpose of the autobiography, this book, he was supposed to be about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, but the most honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't want an autobiography written about him. So they decided to have the autobiography written about Malcolm X. But the whole time, Alex Haley his whole purpose of writing the autobiography of Malcolm X was to get information on the nation, to write an expose to so-called expose the nation, but all the while he's feeding information to the FBI. Malcolm didn't know that Alex Haley was working for the FBI. So there are all of these people that have these other motivations, some in the nation, they're not Muslims, they're working for the government. Some with Malcolm's group, like Gene Roberts, they're not Muslims, they're working for the government to destroy black leadership and destroy black organization so that black people would never rise from the condition that the enemy put us in. So now, so we know that black people pulled the trigger, right? But you can't say with any honesty that it was the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? Or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that told Malcolm's security, right?
Yes, sir.
Because Malcolm had brothers with him that were members of the Nation of Islam that left the nation with him in Muslim Mosque Incorporated. They were over Malcolm X's security. Gene Roberts told them that on February, Gene Roberts, the New York police informant,
yes, sir,
told Malcolm X, not Elijah Muhammad, not the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Gene Roberts told Malcolm X's security that on February 21st, do not bring your guns to the Autobahn ballroom. So now the man's house was just firebombed on the 14th. But now this man comes to Malcolm and says to them, talking about Gene Roberts, the New York informant, not Elijah Muhammad, not the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
Gene Roberts says to Malcolm that when you search people, it reminds them of Elijah Muhammad. So now listen carefully. On February 14th, which was a Sunday when Malcolm spoke at the Autobahn ballroom, everybody was searched. The first day that they stopped searching, I want y'all to listen.
Yes, sir.
The first day that they stopped searching in the Autobahn ballroom was February 21st, 1965. So what are we talking about? How you blaming the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad for the assassination of Malcolm X when it was Gene Roberts who told Malcolm X's people to stop searching? So nobody knew. Who else knew? Did Gene Roberts call? Because some of y'all Negroes will say that. Did Gene Roberts call the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Oh yeah, you know what? We got him now. I told him, don't search nobody. So you can send your people in. Come on, that's insanity. And if that was the case, so some of you Negroes will say that did happen, even though you have no proof. The FBI recorded every conversation that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had, starting from January 1st of 1959. So all of y'all internet people, go get the conversation and bring it up. You can't get it because it doesn't exist. So now, Gene Roberts tells Malcolm X, right, that the searching reminds people of Elijah Muhammad. So February 21st is the first day that there was no search in the Audubon ballroom. So the only people that knew that they were not going to be searching was Malcolm X, his inner guard, right? The brothers who left the nation with him, right? But keep in mind, J. Edgar Hoover sent people into the nation under this program called Black Pro to leave the nation when Malcolm left. Right? I'm hoping everybody's with me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
Now, so Gene Roberts, what does he do? He moves the people off the front row, puts the assassins on the front row, right?
Yes, sir.
He tells the brothers who are with Malcolm, don't bring your guns to the Audubon ballroom, right? He tells Malcolm that the searching reminds people of Elijah Muhammad, right? The only people who knew that there were going to be no guns and no searching is Malcolm's inner guard. So now the only way, now this is what the head of the CIA said. His name is Colonel Fletcher Paltry. He said the only way a leader can be assassinated is if there's a lackness in his inner guard. He said that's the only way. They got to come from the inside in order to assassinate any leader. That's what he said, right? So now you already see that in the assassination of Malcolm X. So now the 5 assassins come, the 3 in the front row, right?
Yes, sir.
The 2 create the diversion, right? All of Malcolm's people, nobody brings their gun except one person, that was Reuben Francis. He brought his gun anyway. So now Malcolm is shot in the Audubon ballroom. The 2 who created the diversion, now let me say this, the people who were with Malcolm, who were in Muslim Mosque Incorporated, these are former members of the Nation of Islam, so they say, right? When Malcolm was on the stage in the Audubon ballroom, the brothers who were supposed to be securing Malcolm, this is not Brother Abdul's opinion, right? If you go and get the grand jury testimony of Sister Betty Shabazz, she says in the grand jury testimony that the guards that were on the stage supposedly securing Malcolm went into the crowd. Anybody in the Nation of Islam that's held front rostrum, right, or held security on the minister, right, knows that if there is a disturbance in the crowd, you don't leave the stage and leave your principal on the stage.
Yes, sir.
And go in the crowd.
Yes, sir.
But so now who you blaming? How you blaming the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad for that? How you blaming the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when Malcolm's own people left him on the stage, right?
Yes, sir.
Went into the crowd, which is against every security protocol, and then the assassins assassinated Malcolm in front of his family. So now, not only did the 2 that created the diversion get away, right?
Yes, sir.
The 3 shooters were going for the door. Guess who was at the door as they were leaving out? Yeah, you guessed it. Gene Roberts was at the door. As the assassins were leaving out of the Audubon ballroom. So now, one man was shot in the leg, right, at the Audubon ballroom. Why? Because Reuben Francis brought his gun anyway. Imagine if Reuben Francis didn't bring his gun, then that man would not have been shot in the leg at the Autobahn Ballroom. So once he was shot in the leg, the crowd at the Autobahn Ballroom started to beat him, right?
Yes, sir.
A second man that was a shooter was tackled on his way down the stairs of the Autobahn Ballroom, and he was being beat up outside of the Autobahn Ballroom. And as he was being beat up, a off-duty police officer named Patrolman Hoy, H-O-Y, broke up the scuffle, arrested the man, and took him to the police station in New York City. So now the cover of the New York Daily News from February 21st, the evening edition, 1965, said Malcolm X assassinated in ballroom as 400 people watch. 2 suspects apprehended. That was the evening edition of the New York newspaper.
Yes, sir.
The morning edition of the New York newspaper carried the same headline: Malcolm X assassinated in ballroom as 400 people watch. 1 suspect was arrested. So now what happened? From the 2 suspects, the evening of the assassination, to the 1 suspect the next morning, February 22nd, 1965, after Malcolm X was assassinated. The man that was taken to the police station in New York that was being beat up outside of the Autobahn Ballroom, that was a shooter in the assassination of Malcolm X, that man was let go. So now I know, because this is 2019 and everybody got an opinion on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So I know you saying, yeah, Elijah Muhammad, see what had happened was Elijah Muhammad called the police station and said, you got to let him go. Yeah, but that's not true. That's just something you made up. So all I'm trying to show, brother, is that the government was involved. Of course, Black people pulled the trigger, that we know, right? But the government, at the end of the day, is responsible for the assassination of Brother Malcolm.
Praise be to Allah for your facts, and thank you all for continuing to watch. I see your comments, Brother Hashim, Brother Ernest, Sister Katisa, Sister Miriam. Thank you all, Sister Rachel. I see all of you all's comments. Brother Abdul, I would like to ask this question. My sister Miriam says, do you think that the FBI will ever release the files? Okay, that's a great question. So I gotta say this for all the so-called critics and haters. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, for the last 30 years, I would say, 25 to 30 years, has asked for the government to release the files on the assassination of Malcolm X unredacted, meaning don't black nothing out, let all the truth come out, and let truth condemn whoever truth will condemn. So if he's involved, then why is he asking for the files to be released unredacted? So do I think that the FBI, they have released some files, right? Yes, do I think that they're going to release files that will show that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had nothing to do? I don't think that they will. And the reason I say that is because as long as there's confusion, right, then it can always be something that can be used to divide our people against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. So I don't think they will. I think they want it the way it is now, where people have formulated an opinion without facts that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has something to do with the assassination of Malcolm X or the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes, sir. Sister Carmen Naya says, if the most honorable Elijah Muhammad or Minister Louis Farrakhan had anything to do with this, they would love to lock them all up or give them the death penalty, and the NOI would have lost all 3. We wouldn't be debating at the FBI. We wouldn't be debating it today. The FBI would have not let them get away with it. My brother Rashad, as well as Brother Ernest, want to know what you think about Dick Gregory's theory, and if you are familiar with that. Now you got to let me know what his theory on the assassination of Malcolm X was. I wish I was like Vlad and I could just play the clip real quick. But right, yeah. So yeah, you would have to let me know. Okay, yes, sir. Yeah, you gotta watch it. It's on YouTube, but I don't have the clip up ready. But okay, we'll keep that. Thank you all for that comment. The next question that we have is, what people who say today in some of the comments under the Breakfast Club and different comments that the reason that the Most Honorable Minister Farrakhan is still standing after all these years of Malcolm X stuff is because he works for the government. How do you defend that as far as, being a student minister?
Yeah. So, brother, the people who say that have such faulty logic. So the argument is that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan can't be a real revolutionary because if he was a real revolutionary, then the government would have killed him by now.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we can just ask questions. Was Fidel Castro a real revolutionary? I mean, people would say yes, but the government didn't kill Fidel Castro. Wow. There's some revolutionaries, like Nas said, that are killed, right? And there's some revolutionaries that Allah protects. And I'm not going to even say that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a revolutionary, even though he is, but not in the way that some of our people look at that term revolutionary, right?
Yes, sir.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad are messengers from God. So when we look at them, we have to judge them not like a black leader, not like a politician, not like a so-called political revolutionary, yes, but we have to judge them like a messenger of God, because that is what they are. You wouldn't judge LeBron because he didn't hit a hole in one, right? Or because he didn't get a touchdown, or because he didn't get a he didn't, whatever you get in these other sports, right? You have to. He didn't get a run batted in, right? None of that. So you can't judge LeBron because he got 0 KOs. He knocked nobody out. How he the greatest, right? So if I was talking like that, if I was saying, man, look, LeBron, man, he never had a hole in one. How he the greatest athlete? Why is Nike paying him all this money? Has he ever had a touchdown? Has he ever caught an interception before? I mean, I'm just trying to, has he ever won a grand slam? I mean, I'm just saying, like, has he ever, what has he done? Like, why is he the great? If I was talking like that, everybody's going to be looking at me like, man, what the hell is wrong with you? Yes, he's a basketball player. You got to judge him based on the sport that he's in.
Yes, sir.
So now you judging a man who's a messenger from God like he's a black leader. And that's a false judgment for a man that is a messenger of God. So if you look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right? When God raises his man, right?
Yes, sir.
Then God either has the power to protect his man from the enemy, or God don't have the power to protect his man from the enemy. And the fact that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is still standing and all the others have fallen away is proof that God is with this man. Now, you got Negroes that'll say, well, no, see, all that means is he worked for the government. Well, are you here? You a revolutionary and you here, so are you working for the government because you still here? Yes, that don't even make no sense. So is that the criteria that, anybody that speaks out, if they live, was Dr. Ben working for the government? Was Francis Cress Welsing working for the government? Well, all of these great black people that dedicated their lives to black people that the enemy didn't assassinate. So you saying all of them, because the bar is so low that the enemy didn't kill them, that they're working for the government? That don't even make no sense. So the real truth is that the enemy has tried repeatedly to assassinate the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And they've been unsuccessful because he's a man that is backed by God 100%. So Allah, God, has protected the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from the plan and the plots of the enemy. So yes, that's why he's here, not because he's working for the government.
Okay, excellent. Also, Brother Abdul, thank you all for your questions. Thank you, Rashad, for the theory. We know the theory, and Brother Abdul will watch it on YouTube when he's finished. I want to say that this podcast is brought to you by, thank you all for the sponsorship, Supreme Spring Water. It is an amazing water. Thank you very much for that. Supreme Spring Water, you can order yours. Also, Street Premiere. If you all need some video, it's a video production company, need some editing, documentaries, things of that nature, Street Premiere can do it. My sister Miriam's book, ABC, I Love Me, which is now on Amazon. It's a coloring book as well. She has a children's book. Thank you for our sponsoring. And my second book, which is Cleopatra, a children's book, is on Amazon as well. Thank you all for your support. If you would like to be a sponsor, please let me know. J Imagination on Cash App, or message me your books. Brother Abdul has plenty of books and DVDs that we should all support. Brother Abdul, what's the name of your new book?
I have a book called Lies My Preacher Told Me.
Yes, sir.
And another book called Going Ham, The Truth About Pork.
Praise be to God. Excellent. Please get those as well. The next question is, Brother Abdul, why did Malcolm X leave the nation?
Okay, that's a good question. So there's different theories that people will say. And I think that if we look at all of the information, it's probably multiple reasons why Malcolm X decided to leave the Nation of Islam. So what I'll say is this, brother, that Malcolm X did a great work while he was in the Nation of Islam. He, with the help of the followers in New York City, brought the Nation of Islam to another level, right? Mm-hmm. People can disagree with that if they want to, but the fact of the matter, it is what it is. It doesn't take anything away from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that he produced a student that did a great work. Every great teacher, I taught for 17 years, yes, and I have a student right now who was in Black Enterprise magazine, a former student, who was one of the top 30 under 30, and he's probably a millionaire right now, right? Mm-hmm. And so he texts me and says, man, thank you for everything you did. You inspired me, so on and so forth, right? I mean, I'm not mad at my student because he took what I taught him and became successful with it. You understand what I'm saying? I have a few students that are like that, right?
Yes, sir.
That are doing a lot of great things. So I'm not mad at them. So people say that, well, you know, Malcolm X left the nation because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was jealous of his success. Those people do not understand the relationship between the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X had a father-son relationship. Mm-hmm. Now I have a son. I have two sons, and I love my sons. If my son became great in any field of endeavor, I'm not going to become jealous of my son because of his greatness. But now at the same time, that same son, if that son does something that's incorrect or out of order, right?
Yes, sir.
Then I have to correct that son, right?
Yes, sir.
So the relationship that Malcolm X and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad had was a father-son relationship. Mm-hmm. Now we would be foolish to think that with the success that Malcolm X had, that it didn't create jealousy among his brothers who were in the Nation of Islam with him, because that just would be a lie, right?
Yes, sir.
Because even though we're in the nation and we're trying to improve our lives for the better, and we're trying to help our people and help ourselves and help our community, we are still human beings. So in the nation, you still have the human condition. Yes, so you still have jealousy, envy, and things. Those are things that we're working on in the nation to free ourselves from, right?
Yes, sir.
So you do have that dynamic. And a lot of times when you have a parent, right, or a father that has children, and all the children want to please the father, right?
Yes, sir.
And if you have one that does greater than the other one, then it's going to cause some animosity, right?
Yes, sir.
In a family that y'all blood brother and sister, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's real, because everybody wants the love and the attention of the mother and father, right?
Yes, sir.
So now that was true in the case of Malcolm X, right? And the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is like supremely wise. So he knows and knew, because the same jealousy that Malcolm X suffered from, guess what? You think you the first person that came in the nation and did a great work and people was jealous of you? No, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad suffered from that same thing, to where people wanted his position and they rose up against him to seek his life because they wanted the position that God gave him. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the fact that Malcolm was, that people were jealous of Malcolm wasn't lost on the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, because he experienced the same thing. But now, if Malcolm is going to become the leader, as they said, if he's going to take the place of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad among the people, then he had to have a certain type of heart to be over Black people. And what does that mean? That means, and you know, I love Black people, right? I love Black people a lot, but I gotta be real. We crazy as hell. It's just a fact, you know.
Yes, sir.
But we can't allow the savagery or the behavior or what we don't like about the way our people are to cause us to then no longer love our people.
Yes, sir.
So that was a lesson inside the nation that Malcolm X had to learn. So people say, well, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was jealous of Malcolm. And that's not true. There were people that were jealous of Malcolm. But it wasn't the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, because the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the one that made Malcolm, according to Malcolm's own words, him who and what he was, right? Yeah. So now other people say, well, you know, when Malcolm X found out that Elijah Muhammad had wives, then that's what made Malcolm X leave the Nation of Islam, right? Or they say, well, when Malcolm X, see what had happened was Malcolm X went to the Middle East and he found out that there was white Muslims, and the Elijah Muhammad said that the white man was the devil. And then so Malcolm X knew that he was like, no. Let's be real. Malcolm X went to the Middle East as a representative of the Nation of Islam in 1959. Malcolm X saw white Muslims in 1959 when he traveled the entire Middle East as a representative of the Nation of Islam. If you read Malcolm X history, whenever the kings and rulers, right, from all over the world would come to New York City and they would meet with Malcolm X. I'm talking about white Muslims in New York, right, meeting with Malcolm X of the Nation of Islam. So you saying that he found out it was white Muslims and Elijah Muhammad said it was, that's just a lie, because we had seen white Muslims and knew it was white Muslims. You say, well, he found out that Elijah Muhammad had wives and he told the brothers that you can only have one wife, right? He did tell the brothers that you can only have one wife. I know y'all be on Facebook talking crazy, but it's one wife, right? Yes. So now, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, as I said previously, is the messenger of God, right? As the messenger of God, he was allowed to take on more than one wife. He's not the first messenger of God or the first man to have more than one wife. The people who criticize the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, do they have that same criticism for other people? Let me give you an example. Please. If Malcolm X left the nation and because he found out that Elijah Muhammad had more than one wife, but then he went to Mecca and met the king. And the king in Mecca, who didn't do nothing for Malcolm and nothing for Black people, right? Didn't raise a nation, didn't teach him Islam. The king of Mecca had more than one wife. So it can't be in the Holy Quran. It's not un-Islamic. In the Holy Quran, a man is allowed to have more than one wife, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not like polygamy is un-Islamic. It's only under certain conditions, and it's only for a limited amount of time to change that condition. So the reasons that people say Elijah Muhammad was jealous, Malcolm X found out that he had more than one wife, or that it was white Muslims, all of these are not accurate. There are, I think they did have influence on him leaving the nation, but there were a lot of different factors that Malcolm X, that I think made him make up his mind to leave the nation. And in 1963, when John Kennedy was assassinated, there was a speech that was supposed to be given at the in New York City. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad was supposed to speak. Now, I need you to keep in mind that John Kennedy was assassinated in November of 19 63, right?
Yes, sir.
I want to say November 22nd. If that's not the date, somebody gonna say I'm lying. So let me look it up real quick. Yeah, it was November 22nd, so I was right. So now, November 22nd, John Kennedy is assassinated. When John Kennedy was first assassinated, what people don't know is that at the beginning, and this is what Brother Jabril said, that when he was first assassinated, they tried to blame the Nation of Islam. So that was out a little bit. But the people in America loved Kennedy, right?
Yes, sir.
And because it was the whole Camelot thing, he was a younger president. So the people, black and white, were enamored and loved John Kennedy. John Kennedy wasn't doing nothing for black people. And I hate to hurt you black people's feelings that are listening. He didn't do anything for black people. All the civil rights laws that we got came from Johnson, didn't come from Kennedy. Kennedy was lying to Martin Luther King and the civil rights leaders, leading them on, and Malcolm X was exposing the lies of the Democratic Party and John Kennedy in their deception of black people. So when Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, the whole country was mourning the death of the president. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was supposed to speak the next week, I believe December 6th, either the 2nd or the 6th in New York City. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad canceled it. Malcolm X came to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Let me go back. When Kennedy was assassinated, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad sent a telegram to all of his ministers: do not make any mention, right?
Yes, sir.
On the assassination of John F. Kennedy, right? Don't mention it, don't talk about it, don't bring it up, right? So that was the directive sent by telegram to all of the ministers in the Nation of Islam, including Malcolm. So Malcolm comes to the home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and says, dear Holy Apostle, we put so much money out for you to come and speak in New York in December, the next week, that we will lose our money. Can I speak in your place? That's the only reason that Malcolm X was there speaking, is because he came to speak in the place of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is him and Malcolm talking together. Yes, sir. He agrees to allow Malcolm to speak in the Audubon, not in the Audubon, pardon me, in New York.
Yes, sir.
In December, right after Kennedy was assassinated. But then he tells them face to face, do not make mention of the assassination of President Kennedy. So Malcolm X goes through the whole speech, right? It's a great speech. And at the end of the speech, a reporter asked him a question. And the question was about the assassination of John Kennedy, who the world loved, right? Black people, white people, the world loved John Kennedy, right? So Malcolm X said that chickens coming home to roost never made me sad. Chickens coming home to roost always made me glad. The next day, all the newspapers covered that as Malcolm X making mockery of the death of President Kennedy. So now the ignorant among us will say, well, didn't Elijah Muhammad teach that the white man was the devil? So what's the problem with him coming and making mockery of a devil that got killed, right? That's because you ignorant, right?
Yes.
A wise man. Now, let me tell you what Andrew Johnson said, right? President Johnson. He said that whenever Nikita Khrushchev got sick, he always sent him flowers. He said, but the American people would never think that just because I send him flowers when he gets sick, that America and Russia are now friends. So what was Johnson displaying when the leader of the enemy nation was sick? He sent them flowers. He was being a diplomat, right? Malcolm wasn't some brother who was just on a street corner. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad elevated Malcolm with the wisdom from God to the position of a world leader. And in a position of a world leader, you cannot take your platform that you've been given and then I don't want to use this word destroy, but lessen the platform or the prestige that the platform allows you to have, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
So as a leader of a nation and as a diplomat, if another leader of a nation is killed, then even if you disagree, you always send your condolences to that leader and that nation and that family out of respect for the angel of death. So now Malcolm didn't do that. But see, Malcolm, in him talking about Kennedy, was only thinking about himself, but not thinking about the impact that his words would have on thousands of Muslims all over the country who are followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now imagine your daughter is walking to Muhammad University and somebody's angry because of what Malcolm X said about John Kennedy, a man that Black folks love and still love today, unfortunately, right? So now, not only did Malcolm X put himself in harm's way by making a comment like that, because now the people that love Kennedy now hate Malcolm, right? But not just Malcolm, they also hate everything that Malcolm represents and all those people that follow him and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it was a comment that didn't need to be made, right? And it was a comment that could have led to more problems, not just for Malcolm, but for other people in the nation. So to protect Malcolm from the anger of the people that love Kennedy, right? The most honorable Elijah Muhammad, out of his love for his son, says, look, for the next 90 days, you're the minister of the mosque. You're still the minister, right? Because he was his best minister, hands down.
Yes, sir.
You're still the minister in New York. You're still the minister of the mosque. You just can't speak in the public for the next 90 days until this thing dies down, right? Now that's out of love for my son that made a mistake and said something that now is going to cause the hate of the world to come against him. But I don't want nothing to happen to my son. So I'm going to pull him in to protect him. Now, as a son, you might not see it like that. Or a government agent might be in your ear telling you, oh, no, see. And I think all of those things, brother, were factors in Malcolm X leaving the nation. So we already know, like because I know y'all on the internet, right, typing under this right now as we talking, right? But you got no facts. I'm coming with straight facts.
Yes, sir.
So now we know that when Malcolm X, how do we know that the government people was talking in his ear? Because when Malcolm X was sat down from speaking in the public, the FBI visited Malcolm X at his home in New York, and Malcolm X recorded the conversation because they wanted to flip him and make him an enemy of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. That recording is on YouTube. You can listen to it for yourself. So, brother, I'm only here to say that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't have anything to do with the assassination of Malcolm X. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan didn't have anything to do with the assassination of Malcolm X. The United States government did absolutely have something to do with the assassination of Malcolm X. So let me say this, brother, because I know we're about to run out of time, because I know what the critics are going to say before they say it.
Yes, sir. So
they're going to say, well, brother, you didn't say anything about the article that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote in Muhammad Speaks newspaper, where it says a man such as Malcolm is worthy of death. And he did write that, right?
Yes, sir.
So now here's what people have to understand, right? And he said that, and he would have met it had it not been for Muhammad's, in so many words, his I don't want to use the word knowledge, but his faith that he would have victory over all of his enemies. So they never quote the second part, right?
Yes, sir.
So now let me just say this real quick. Malcolm X left the nation in 1964, March of 64, right?
Yes, sir.
Because he was sat down in 63 And then at the end of his 90 days, when he got off the 90-day suspension, that's the day that he announced that he was leaving the nation, right?
Yes, sir.
In March of 1964. Brother, if the most honorable Elijah Muhammad had ordered Malcolm X to be assassinated, he wouldn't have lived a year and a half after he left the nation, because it's something that would have just happened right away. The fact that Malcolm X lived a year and a half after he left the nation is because the most honorable Elijah Muhammad told his followers to leave Malcolm X alone. And that's just a fact. And you all who are writing can interpret it however you want to interpret it. But that's just a fact.
Yes, sir.
The most honorable Elijah Muhammad always thought, because let me just put it like this. I have, like, okay, in my house, right? I grew up with my brothers, right? I love my mother, right? And I love my brothers. If my brother, who we used to sleep in the bed together, right?
Yes, sir.
We grew up together, right?
Yes, sir.
Everything we did it together, right?
Yes, sir.
So we stole comic books together. We did all of it, right?
Yes, sir.
If my brother, who I love, rose up against my mother to do my mother harm, guess what? Yeah, I'm gonna beat the brakes off my brother, who right? Who we ate cereal with, who we played video games with. If my brother, who I lived my whole life with, rises up against my mother, who gave me birth, then I'm gonna rise up and I'm gonna beat my brother. And that's just what it is.
Yes, sir.
So you all got it twisted because you think that that Malcolm could rise up against the most honorable Elijah Muhammad in the way that he did. And the people that love the most honorable Elijah Muhammad would not have a reaction. When you, the very critics of Elijah Muhammad, would have a reaction if somebody tried to harm something that you love. So what are you talking about? But the fact that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad loved this man as a son. So you know that if if you and your brother got in a fight because your brother disrespected your mother, right?
Yes, sir.
If you started to really beat your brother, your mother, who just got disrespected,
absolutely,
to tell you to stop out of her love for her own son, even though he was disrespectful. So when people judge it, they judge it as if the most honorable Elijah Muhammad had no love for a man that he taught for 12 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he was in prison. He wrote him letters and sent him money. When the Negroes who criticized the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, y'all got family that's locked up. You ain't writing no letters. You ain't sending no money. You just going on the website, seeing are they still there. You don't even want to. When Malcolm X got out of prison, the first place that he came to with the clothes from jail, according to War of Dean Muhammad, was the home of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. You got Negroes that don't love their own family like that. Ray out. Okay, well, let's hide the silverware. You know, my point is that people are looking back and they're judging it. They don't have all the facts and they don't have the human emotion that's attached to the situation that happened. But the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, he's a man that loved Malcolm as a son, and did, even though Malcolm was wrong, just like I love my son, even though my son has been wrong before. It's not going to take away no love. Even if I put my son out, some of you parents have put your children out because they're just so disrespectful that you got to go. Does that mean you don't love them? No, the fact that you put them out is love, because if you keep disrespecting me, something else is going to happen. Yes. So what are we talking about? We talking about human beings that react like human beings, right?
Yes, sir.
We talking about two men that loved each other, that had a disagreement, that if you read the FBI file, the FBI engineered the whole thing.
Yes, sir.
Between Malcolm X and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and took credit for the assassination. I'm just telling you what the FBI said. So if the most honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted to harm Malcolm, then it would have happened sooner rather than later.
Actually.
You understand?
Yes, sir.
So I just want to put that out there, because I know somebody's going to bring that up, right? So we want to just take that stick out of your hand before you pull it out.
Yes, sir. But I just want to read some of the comments.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Nia. Okay, Nia Durbin, Black Fishery, Brother Eric. So Nia Durbin says, teach on that. Sister Inez Stallworth. I swear this is such a contentious topic for some folks. So fiercely adamant about laying blame on the NOI, all while having not even been born at that time. Like Carmen said, if there was any opportunity to convict the Most Honorable Louis Farrakhan of a crime, they would have jumped on that chance logic. Sister Bronda from Chicago. Sister Bronda, excellent point. Brother Abdul, Brother Maurice, good teaching. Thank you, Sister Amatullah. Great teaching, Sister Mimi, Brother Rashad. Let me make sure I read all the comments. Sister Curtisa said, do you know the name of the YouTube clip of the agent trying to flip Malcolm X on the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, so she can look it up? And thank you all again for watching this excellent interview.
I think you could look it up. FBI visits Malcolm. So see, the thing is, there's a lot of information out there.
Yes, sir.
So there's the FBI coming to Malcolm's home. There's an apology that Malcolm recorded to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is also on YouTube. You can listen to that as well.
Yes, sir.
So there are other things that in this short amount of time we're not going to be able to talk about. But I think we covered the main points dealing with the assassination.
Absolutely. Just two more questions, if you don't mind, Brother Abdul.
Yes, sir. Not a problem.
Yes, sir. We dealt with the messenger being jealous of Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
And what about people who feel that the minister was jealous of Malcolm X?
Brother, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in no way, shape, form, or fashion was jealous of Malcolm. Now, were there people jealous in the nation? Absolutely. The minister, now people say, let me give you the logic, right?
Yes, sir.
People say, well, when Malcolm was assassinated, they sent the minister to New York, and the minister always wanted his place. So he had to have been jealous of Malcolm. Though again, right? So these are people who don't have the knowledge of the relationship, right?
Yes, sir.
Between Malcolm X and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Malcolm X talks about the minister in his autobiography.
Yes, sir.
But the minister, when he came in the nation in 1955 and heard the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Chicago, and he filled out his form, of course, he never got a response back. So, and, he wanted to be in the nation like many of us. People come to the nation and we don't get back with them, and then they might fall by the wayside or come later or whatever, right?
Yes, sir.
So now, when the minister was in New York, later in, because that was February of 1955 for Savior's Day. So he comes back to New York in October of 1955, and he goes to the mosque and hears Malcolm X speak. And when he hears Malcolm X speak, then he's reconvicted, right?
Mm-hmm.
To join the Nation of Islam in New York under Malcolm's leadership, right?
Yes, sir.
And he becomes he speaks in the FOI class, right?
Yes, sir.
But the way he got in the ministry of the Nation of Islam was one night they had what they call bearing witness night, where you come in front of the audience, in front of the mosque, and you share what Islam has done for you, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Malcolm invited the minister, because the minister didn't know he could speak because he stuttered, according to what he said, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said that Malcolm invited him to speak at the mosque and talk about what Islam had done for him. And when the minister spoke, he like today, like now, he shut the whole thing down.
Yes, sir.
So then Malcolm brought the minister into the ministry class under his leadership in New York. So if you go and get the pictures where Malcolm is teaching on Lenox Avenue and all of these different places.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The minister's right there with him. So the enemy, they always cut him out now because they, you know, they hate the minister. I know what y'all saying, right? No, he works for him, right? That's what y'all crazy Negroes are saying. But no, they cut him out because they can't do nothing with him, right? Yes, they can't defeat him. So the minister was there, right? You go look at the videos. The minister plays his violin before Malcolm comes to speak.
Yes, sir.
So the relationship, again, that we never talk about, right? The relationship between the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm was a father-son that was bonded by love, right? The relationship between Malcolm and the minister was a brotherly relationship that was also bonded by love, right? Yes, when Malcolm was going all over the country speaking, and he was becoming more and more famous, and the other ministers were hating on him, he talked to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and said, Brother Louis, I'm just going to stop going around. I'm just going to focus on New York City. And the minister said, well, you know, Brother Malcolm, you can always come to Boston. You're always welcome in Boston. The question is, how did the minister get from New York, where he was born, to Boston at mosque number, I want to say mosque number 11? The way the minister got there is because in Boston, there was a conflict between the two ministers in Boston. And Malcom X suggested to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that Brother Louis be who he was training up in New York under him, that he be the minister in Boston. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad agreed, and Malcolm told the minister, his brother, who he loved, they loved one another.
Yes, sir.
That you were going to be the minister in Boston. And so, of course, the minister's ready and willing to serve. So right before they get out there, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad calls Malcolm and says, brother, don't make him the minister, make him the captain, because he needs to be tried under. If he can survive under, then he'll be qualified to go over, right? Yes, sir. Just wisdom.
Yes, sir.
So now, because most of us don't want to be tried under, we just want to be over, right?
Absolutely.
So then the minister gets to Boston, and they meet with the other two ministers, and the minister is made the captain instead of the minister, right? But a few years later, he was made the minister. But the reason, and that's the whole point of me bringing it up, is that it was Malcolm that made him the minister, that suggested and went to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad so that the minister become the minister in Boston. So what people don't factor in is that these are two men that loved each other. The last conversation that Malcolm and the minister had was in Malcom X's car that's at Malcom X College right now.
Yes, sir. And
the Malcolm confided about how he felt with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So if the minister was jealous, now you saying Malcolm, as intelligent, as wise as Malcolm was, he didn't know that the minister was jealous? We have no evidence that can prove in any way that the minister was jealous of Malcolm X. When the minister came to New York, you may say, well, yeah, he replaced Malcolm. You saying that like that's something good. Like, this is the mosque that Malcolm built. These are the people that Malcolm raised up and made Muslims. This is a house after Malcolm is assassinated that is absolutely divided, and the work that was up here is now down here. So what did the minister inherit when Malcolm left? He inherited a mosque that was divided against itself. So if I'm jealous, I don't want to take something. If I'm jealous because you got a Mercedes Benz, right? And then you wreck the damn Benz. So now I want it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So he's so jealous that come on. No, but what happened was he was not jealous. And he loved his brother. He couldn't follow like I love my brother, but I'm not gonna follow my brother against my mother.
Yes, sir.
That's not gonna happen, especially if my brother is wrong. So now, when the minister came to New York, he didn't inherit a mosque that was progressive and that was putting in work. He didn't inherit that. He inherited a mosque that was destroyed by a government plot and through division. So, but what happened? He rebuilt the work of Brother Malcolm in New York, right?
Yes, sir.
And then even surpassed his work in New York City.
Yes, sir.
So no, he wasn't jealous. Why would Allah bless a jealous man to do something like that?
Crazy. Well, I want to thank you, Brother Abdul. I want to thank everyone for watching. This is such a sensitive subject, and Brother Abdul handled it as usual in such a great manner.
All praises due to Allah.
This will be on Off the Record on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. These are, I mean, Brother Abdul answered every question that I saw people having comments, and he dealt with it with just facts and actual facts. So thank you, Brother Abdul. Please go back and rewatch it just to make sure y'all can clear some of the books. Like, Brother Abdul, you put me on to the Black. What you call it? That J. Edgar Hoover started, not COINTELPRO.
It's called Black Pro.
Black Pro.
COINTELPRO wasn't started until 1968, I believe.
Yes, so I'm gonna go research that. I never knew, and I'm a history major, so now I'm feel ashamed. But thank you, Brother Abdul, for that. Sister Brenda says, I always appreciate the historical facts that Abdul brings to any circumstances. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in 15 minutes on Top 5. So thank you again, Brother Abdul, for being a hard worker, dedicated. We love your family, and thank your family for their sacrifice as well.
Praise Allah. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Send your family greetings for me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you, Sister Kurtisa, for your comments. Sister Kurtisa, I gotta bring you. Okay. Thank you. All right. Something like that.